you guys, this isn't the video. You're going to watch the video in a moment, but I had to do this. I'm in the middle of eating, and you guys always know, after I say my prayers, I look for a video, any video about God, about even if it's about science and pertaining to God or whatever. And I did a video, which you're about to watch. And in this video, I talk about something. And I begin by saying that I'm breaking it down to be simple, because I haven't heard anybody break it down as simple as I'm going to break it down to you. This is what I say in the video. And I've seen hundreds of videos on how molecules work and science and evolution and all these things. I've collected all these data, and never have I heard anyone break it down the way I did. And then so I decided to make a video on it today on my way from Costco, which is what you're about to watch. Then I say my prayer, I come, I sit down, I begin eating, I find a video to watch, and I finish watching it. The first video I watched was like about 20 minutes long. Then I look for another video to watch, and it's about this guy whom I've never heard of before. This brand new chemist now. That's his field, chemistry. And he only speaks for about 6 minutes. And he breaks it down exactly the same way I broke it down that you're going to hear in this. So I'm going to add his clip at the end of the video. So if you pay close attention to what I'm explaining, look at the similarities between what I say and what he says. God be paying attention to me. I'm telling you guys, this is no coincidence. I made a video to try to simplify it so that you guys can understand how impossible it is, evolution, that obviously there's a God. Then I come down to sit, and after all the videos I've watched all my life, no one has ever broken it down the way I'm about to do in this video that I've already done, basically, but this is, I'm already home. And then I watch a video, and the guy breaks it down using the exact same points. The exact same points. Now, you might think I probably watched that before I made... No, I'm not like that. What should I say to make you believe me? If I'm lying, let God kill me in a car accident, devastated with my head chopped off, and gruesome scene on a highway. I don't care. Like, let God curse me. Let me become ugly, or whatever. I don't know. Let my thing never come up for a woman, or you know what I'm saying? Like, let him curse me if I'm lying. So if you pay attention to what I'm about to say, and you listen to the guy at the end of the video that I'm gonna post, you'll see. I'm telling you guys, God lives, and he pays close attention to me. Yo, this is... And if you saw my last video, pretty much the same thing happened. I was talking about the punishment for a thief before I was going to go to the store, and then God gives me the sign when I go to open the Bible. It happens in a video. It happens in the video. My last video, if you watch it. A lot of people didn't really watch it, but I don't care. If you watch that video, you'll see the other sign that God gave me there. And I also talk about in that video about this fool who spoke about Christ being in Egypt and India and Tibet, learning witchcraft and stuff like that, and coming back to Jerusalem at the age of 32. I shut that down in my last video. So it's both connected in that video. So peace. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to add this. I just went back to sit down again to keep listening to the guy. But I forgot to mention why I even decided to make this audio first before I started the video. Because the title of the video that I'm watching has nothing to do with what I spoke about today. It's just about a guy speaking about how does foresight prove something, and I just clicked it because it's under Discovery Science, the channel. So I just clicked it, and he's talking about molecules, and how molecules and how the limitations of molecules proves that there's a God. I mean, like the exact same points, and so not only if I had came home and searched up the subject of what I was talking about today, and then I come to find a video, even then it will be a big sign, because no one has ever broken it down the way I've broken it down in this video. And then the video that I clicked has nothing to do with molecules. It doesn't say molecules at all. And 2 videos in a row. It was 3 minutes each. First one speaks about what I was talking about. The next one, even more so what I was talking about. I was like, this is strange. And I look at the title, it has nothing to do with molecules. I was like, nah, let me add this before I begin the video, before I post the video, so yeah. If a person knows a lot about a subject it changes their perspectives, right? Like, okay, for example, you will never find a scientist who believes in God that will stop believing in God because of the things they learn in science. You will only find people who don't believe in God go through science and say there is no God, but you will never find someone who believes in God go through science and say there's no God. But also you will find people who didn't believe in God, and because of science they believe in God, right? So it's three kinds of people. Those who already know there's a God, and through science, through their field, they see that there is a God. Then there are those who don't believe in God, but through their field, they come to believe there's a God. And then there are those who say there's no God, and despite what the evidence shows, they still say there's no God. You will never have someone who believes in God and then goes into science or goes into any field and then say there is no God because of the science. Now I'm speaking specifically about biology and chemistry, those fields. You have some pastors who don't believe in God after they become pastors, which I don't understand that, but you have that. But I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people who are into science, right? They go into science. You will never have someone who loses faith in God because of science. No, that never happens. It's always the other way around. And those who don't believe in God, even after the science, are those who adamantly refuse to accept that there's a God. Why is it that those who believe in God, they still believe in God after science, after the evidence, but those who don't believe in God, why do they believe in God after the science, after the evidence, after their field? Why? Because it's really this simple. And I like to make things really simple. Why is it that when a child believes that Superman can fly, once they get older, they know that Superman can't fly? Why does that happen? Because the child begins to increase in their knowledge about the world around them, which is their field. They realize when you put something in the air, it's crumbling down. You can't levitate in the sky. You need wings, and you got to be able to control those wings. You can't just have wings and fly. No, if you have wings and you jump off a building, you're gonna fall to your death. You got to know how to use those wings, right? Like Falcon from Marvel. You have to learn how to use the wings, or else you just plummet to your death. So the more knowledge you come to have, and if I'm kind of yelling because I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. So forgive me if I'm yelling, but I want you guys to hear me. I don't want this video to be a waste. In the Old Testament, God said, He asked the Israelites, can a stick get up and walk? Can a stone or a rod or a knife or a sword strike unless someone moves it to strike, right? No, it can't, right? We know that. We can observe that, right? So if someone wants to tell you that there were a bunch of sticks and a bunch of objects on the floor, and over billions of years, these objects, through the blowing of winds, they came together to formulate a machine. And then with this machine, once they became a machine, the machine had to go and fetch for food, gasoline, so that it can continue to power itself to continue being a machine. Otherwise, it will not be a machine anymore. So all the parts need to be together to be able to go and fetch gasoline to power themselves so that the machine can keep working. Well, that's a conundrum. That's a paradox, because if it takes energy for the machine to become a machine so that it needs to go and fetch gasoline to maintain its machineness, how did it become a machine in the first place when it didn't have the energy to become a machine? But this is very analogous to your body, and I'm gonna get to it in a second. There's a man who went to a forest, and it was a clean forest, nothing was there, and he built a house. When he built the house, he built some things to live in the house. Then he left. Then some travelers came and they saw the house. Travelers came and they saw the house, and they saw the things that were in the house. And they said, well, we know that trees and things, these, objects can't self-assemble. So obviously this was constructed, but we never saw the person. He built it, and for some reason he chose to just hide himself. Right? And you say, well, we don't have things like that on the earth. We don't see buildings. If God made a house and left, we would know there's a God. But he didn't make a house. We don't see houses in nature that no one constructed. So we can't say that there's a God. Well, you are a house. You are a house. You're a building. I'm gonna get into the other things, but just to, set the scene. You're a house. You live inside of you. You say, no, I live inside my apartment building, inside my car, inside my tractor trailer. No, you don't live inside your apartment. You live inside you. You don't live in your house. You live in you. The you that you live in is what lives inside the house, but you live inside your house. If you cut off your arm, doesn't the spirit of you know that you're supposed to have an arm? Don't you desire to use that arm that you don't have? You still desire to use it, right? Because your arm is not what makes your arm. You is what makes up you, but you inhabit you. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say here, right? Like, a person in a wheelchair can't walk, but they desire to walk. They can walk in their mind. You can't run as fast as your spirit desires to run. An old person can run fast, but their body is weak, so their flesh cannot accommodate what their spirit actually desires. You want to do something, but you can't do it because your body limits you. But just because your body limits you doesn't mean that you don't desire to do it and you can't do it. You can't do it, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. A paralyzed person's limitation is in their paralysis, not necessarily in their mind. They can desire to do that which their body limits them from doing. Now let me get into the meat of the matter. Why is it that and why is it so foolish and absurd for someone to tell you that a building can construct itself? Well, it's nonsensical because you know all through your life that a piece of wood just lays there. It doesn't do anything. You know all your life that a wheel, even though it's shaped to roll, cannot roll by itself. It takes something to roll it. You know through observation all your life that objects are situated. They do not move. Without a biological entity acting upon these objects, they just sit there, right? You know this because you observe this. It's very evident. The reason why you are fooled into thinking that life can occur by itself is because you haven't studied molecules. So you're not aware of what molecules can do. So when you're not aware of what things can do, you can fantasize in your mind, and there is no limit to the fantastical things you can imagine in your mind. This is what the devil plays on. He plays on your lack of knowledge. Like God says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And like God says, only a wise person will observe that not only does there exist a God, but he's more real than anything. Chemists who study chemistry will tell you it's true. Molecules don't do anything. They just sit there. Look up a chemist named Dr. James Tour. He's already received tenure. He's already passed his schooling, so he can speak the truth without him being penalized for it. So he speaks the truth. People who are already in their field who haven't gotten tenure, they can't speak what they know is true because they're not gonna receive sponsorships, they're not gonna receive scholarship, they're not gonna receive funding. And as a scientist, your work is based on this. So you have to follow the script, even though what you work with tells you that this is a false script. You have to follow it. Otherwise, your whole career would go down the drain. So you have to listen to people who've already passed their field, and they will tell you plainly. Like again, James Tour, he tells you, listen, molecules just sit there. And the analogy he gives is really not an analogy, because let me say this before I explain further. He says computer chips, you know, that help to make a computer function and all that, the programming is made out of silicone. It's silicone chips, right? Silicone is sand. He says, can you fathom a world where sand on the beach can assemble themselves into a computer chip, a silicone computer chip? No. Why? Because you know that sand just sits on the beach, and no matter how much wind blows, no matter how much water touches it, it's never going to assemble into a computer chip. That's absurd. You're not going to fool anybody with that, because we all see this as evidence. He says molecules do the exact same thing. They just sit there. Yes, they are molecules. They just sit there. Fat just sits there. Amino acids, proteins, they just sit there. Carbohydrates, sugars, they just sit there. These are molecules. They are no different in molecules than a piece of wood is. It's no different than concrete is. It's no different than sand. These are all molecules. Everything that makes up me, you, a car, this phone that I'm talking to you with, this wheel, this a mirror, the floor, wind, air, gravity, water, oxygen, ammonia, everything is molecules. Everything is molecules. Everything. That is why you will never, until this day, see life or anything. Forget about life. You will never see anything, any object, any molecular thing assembling, self-assembling. No, they just sit there. They just sit there. So, when did any molecules come together to assemble a machine? Now you see, when you think of a machine, you think of iron and maybe like titanium and aluminum, metal, copper. You think of these as machines. No, yeah, that's what we think of machines as. But a machine can be made out of anything. We just can't make a machine out of anything because we don't have the intelligence to do so. But you can make a machine out of amino acids. You can make a machine out of fat. You can make machines out of anything. We just don't know how to do it. We only know how to make machines out of what we make machines out of. Sticks and iron and rod and copper but these are molecules. You will never see iron mixing with clay and aluminum to make a machine. That will never happen. So too, you will never see amino acids coming together, mixing together to make protein, and then that protein assembles to make a molecular machine, and then to make another No, this is fantasy. It doesn't happen. But you can't understand this because you haven't worked with molecules. The more you work with something, the more you know its limitations. And chemists are telling you, listen, it is no different than a machine. A bacteria, a cell, a human being is literally a machine. The only difference is that it's made of different types of parts. It's made out of different kinds of molecules. But they're all molecules. Don't think that because it's protein, it has some strange, mysterious way that it can do things to make something. No, it just sits there. It just sits there forever. But as a matter of fact, it is more likely for titanium and iron and copper to make a machine than for the machines that we are made out of. Why? Because the machines that we are made out of degrades. It breaks down. Iron breaks down, but not as fast. It takes a while. But you put protein in water, it's going to start degrading instantly. So it is literally impossible for life to exist. It cannot happen. If you can't fathom machines building themselves out of any material, then do not presume that life can build itself out of any material. It can't. They're all the same thing. How can I make this any more clearer? We are made out of amino acids, which makes proteins. We are made out of lipids, which is fats. We are made out of nucleic acids. And we are made out of, what did I left out? Carbohydrates, sugars. This is what we are made out of. We are made, flesh and bone is made out of these components. This is what we are. But those things in of themselves do nothing. Even when you combine them, they do nothing. You have to craft it. You have to make an artifact out of it. You need to do things with it for it to become something. Just as much as you need to do something with wood to make a house. Just as much as you need to do something with clay to make pottery. These are all the same things, people. Okay, so just assume that you've worked with molecules enough and understand what chemists are telling you. Listen, the molecules, they don't do anything at all. They don't do anything. Why do you think they are now appeasing to panspermia, that it must have came from outer space? Because the more knowledge you come to have about the field, the more you realize how ridiculous the theory of evolution is. I call it evolution. I want to stand somewhere so I can focus a little bit better and explain to you guys a little bit better. Let me double park here. Listen. It's so, you know, the devil is counting on is us, that the majority of mankind will not understand what molecules do. You see, he's counting on that. He's counting on your ignorance. Again, the more ignorant you are of something, the more you can fantasize about what it can do. The more you know about something, the more you know what can't be done. So you're not going to be fooled. No one can fool you once you know. No one can fool you and tell you that a car can self-assemble, because you know that the pieces of a car can just sit there. So if you're a chemist, you know that a life cannot form by itself, because you know what the pieces of life do. They just sit there. A car, let's say a car is like life, right? So all the pieces in the car is moving together. And as they're moving together, it's moving the car to go and get food. First of all, how does the car know that this is its food? It's just a molecule. It doesn't have a conscience. So it just happens to eat things, and it's eating things that it's not killing it, but it's giving it life. I'm going on too many tangents. Let me break it down from the top. In order to have the pieces of life, you need to make them. But in order to make them, you need energy. The energy, they say, comes from the sun. It's powering the earth, right? Okay. It's light energy, radiation, and it powers the substances of the earth to create these molecules. But the same energy that creates these molecules will also destroy these molecules 100 times faster than it is creating them. So, you know, origin of life researchers say you have to find, if you presume that the substances of life, or that life occurred by itself, okay, fine. These things created it, but you also have to find a way to filter out the destructive energy so that it doesn't destroy the compounds that you're making. Because if you don't do that, not only will you not create the compounds, but you will destroy them. If you ever do create them, you'll destroy them 1,000 times over. So, but that can't happen. That's unnatural. You can't use energy to create something and preserve that thing you've made from that very same energy that made it, that will also destroy it 100 times over. So you have to, so that's the first problem. Just from the start, that's the first problem. The second problem is that oxygen will destroy these compounds. And you say, well, there was no oxygen in the early life. Okay, if there was no oxygen, then that means there was no ozone layer, because ozone layer is 3 times oxygen, because ozone layer is O3. Oxygen is O2. So ozone layer means that not only is there oxygen, but it's very potent. But you're saying there's no oxygen. So if there's no oxygen, there's no ozone layer. If there's no ozone layer, that energy that's making the molecules will destroy it 500 times over, because there's nothing to filter out the energy, the strength of the energy. So take your poison, choose your poison. There's no oxygen or there's oxygen. You say there's no oxygen. Okay, the molecules will never be created. If there is oxygen, once they are created, they'll be destroyed because oxygen absolutely destroys all these compounds. That's why Miller had to remove oxygen from the experiment. But if you remove oxygen, the same energy that creates the molecules will destroy it. So those are the first two problems. Once let's ignore that and said, okay, it went through that, which it can't, but it went through that. Okay, fine. Already you see the impossibility of it. Already you see the impossibility of it. Now, you have to find a way to get these substances in water so that you can combine them. Because they don't have legs, so they're not going to walk and join to each other and start making, life. No, it has to form in some fluid. It has to form in some fluid. My girl's calling me and I don't want to talk to her right now. I got to explain this thing. It's more important. So it has to form in fluid, right? Whatever fluids you want, fine. But this fluid will also break up. You need a fluid to bring them together, theoretically, because it can't come together on land. So theoretically, there's no other substance for it to come together in except fluid. But fluid, this thing that you absolutely need to get them to join together, is the very same compound that will break them apart. Because things don't form in water, they degrade in water. And in order for you to connect an amino acid to another amino acid, you can't just put them together. No, you need to remove a hydrogen molecule. You need to remove water in order for them to come together. But how do you remove water in water? How do you dry a wet towel in a pool? It's a paradox. That is the other problem, the third or the fourth problem. In order to combine them, you need to remove water. But you need water to combine them if there's no person to combine them, because we're just counting on nature. So how do they join together? And not only do you need to remove water to combine them, the amino acid to the other amino acid, and you need to do this with all the amino acids to form just one protein, right? You need to do this with all these molecules, but not only do you need to remove the water in water to combine one amino acid with another amino acid and do this for all the amino acids to make one protein, but you also need an enzyme in order to do that, to catalyze it. But these enzymes are also themselves made out of hundreds of amino acids that makes up proteins that makes up the enzyme. So you need something that already exists in order to make that which you're trying to make but already exists. If this is how you can make it, and you need something that's already made to make the thing that's already made, it's like you need humans to make humans. Well, how did you get the first human if you need humans to make humans? You see? And in order to make energy, ATP, in order to make ATP, you need in order to make ATP, you need 6 ATPs already made in order to make 1 ATP. And unless you do that, you will not have the energy to live. So if you need 6 things, if you need 6 humans to make 1 human, how did any of these first humans come into existence? God has done this intentionally. He's done this intentionally. That's why the Bible says you are completely without an excuse to deny his existence. But in ignorance, you can fantasize that, yeah, life can occur by itself. Yeah. And the more you come to realize what molecules can do, the more it'll be absurd to you, just as much absurdity as it is for you to come to fathom that machines can self-assemble. It cannot. It cannot. So we talk about the molecules binding together, right? So that's like the 5th paradox. Okay. Now, let's say that happens. I hate saying that because why are we giving you guys the benefit of the doubt? No, we should give you no benefit because the first problem already can't be solved. So that's why one biologist was like, by the time the Urey experiment came about, they had already presumed that they had concrete to stand on to start building life when they didn't even have water to stand on. They had nothing to stand on, but yet they started with concrete, as if they have concrete to stand on. They're talking about, oh, with these molecules, when you have protein, or amino acids, and you have the fats and the carbohydrates, then you start. But wait, what do you mean when you have the amino acids and the proteins and the fats and the carbohydrates? You don't even know how to make the protein or the amino acids. Why are you standing on concrete why are you presuming to stand on concrete when you don't even have air to stand on? Right? So why are we giving you the benefit of the doubt and saying, okay, if we have concrete, let's build on that? No, you don't even have air to stand on. So don't even build on you can't build on anything. Okay, so we already talked about the fifth paradox, right? What is another paradox? When it's so much to say. When these molecules come together, right? For example, when you make these compounds that I was telling you earlier, that the same energy that makes them, that presumably makes them, will also destroy them, definitely 100 to 500 times more than is creating them, right? When these things are made, it's not just the compounds that you need for life that are made. You get a fraction of the compounds that you need to make life, but you get myriads of compounds that are absolutely useless as far as life is concerned, and they contaminate the molecules that you do want. So you get 100 times more poison than the substances that you actually need to make life. So that poison contaminates the substance. So you have to clean out the substance. So when they do these things in the lab, they get a whole bunch of junk, toxic gunk, right? And each process, so what we have to filter out the gunk, the garbage, and they say that the process, the time and energy and process to filter out the junk is far more taxing than the actual making of the product. So when you make the product, you get a whole bunch of mud to contaminate it. And when you combine an amino acid with another amino acid, and you have to remove the water, and you're doing this in water, the byproduct is a lot of garbage, a lot of junk. And you have to filter out that junk, because if you don't filter out that junk, nothing meaningful is going to come out of it. Even in a pristine lab, these are the problems. So how did it happen in nature? How did nature clean it? Nature is already dirty. So how are you going to make something clean in nature? And when you make that thing, it produces more dirty things, which has to be filtered out. Nature is not going to weed those things out. Nature has no goal. It don't care. It's indifferent. And molecules just sit there. So the molecules are not even trying to make things. And even if they did, it would become meaningless products. Because the byproducts would absolutely destroy the thing that you're trying to make. And nature is not even trying to make anything. So nothing will ever get done. Okay? So now also when you finally have all these things together, the amino acid is there together with the fat and the sugars. But in life, the amino acid has to link up only with amino acids. It can't link up with any other toxic things, any other compounds, any other mud structure, any other gunk. It has to mix up only with amino acids. Anything gets in there, the whole thing is destroyed. It can't touch sugar. It can't touch fat. It needs to be only... That's natural to you? A whole bunch of things are together, and only protein, amino acids mix with amino acids. Only sugar mixes with sugars. The sugar don't touch any fat. It doesn't touch any amino acids. It doesn't touch... Sugar only touches sugar. Fat only touches fat. And amino acids only touches amino acids and protein. Nothing else is touched. That's natural to you? Nature is not clean, but in order to get life, you need to have clean, pristine. This is impossible even in a pristine lab. Chemists are telling you all of this. It cannot happen. It cannot. It just can't. So, when people say, there was one guy, his name is Dave, and he has a lot of subscribers, and he speaks about things that he doesn't even know about. And James Tour made a video about something, and the guy, Dave, tried to debunk him. And then James Tour, the chemist, the leading chemist in the world, made a rebuttal video. And when you see the rebuttal video, it really opens your mind to see how these so-called evolutionist provers just talk nonsense. They're like, to make these compounds is utterly trivial. It's so easy to do. We've even made machines that do it, you know. And James Tour is like, chemists, my fellow chemists, I apologize. I apologize to you that there are people who have college degrees who are spewing this nonsense, who make what we do, who speak about what we do as utterly trivial, that is so easy. And he's apologizing in behalf of all fellow chemists and biologists, specifically chemists. Because the guy is making, when someone is a savant, is like a master at boxing, and then the average person who watches boxing on the TV is like, that's easy. Like, why did Floyd Mayweather get hit with that punch? Like, why did he lose to Floyd Mayweather? Like, that's so easy. If I was in there, I would have done that. Like, when you're not in something, you talk about it like it's easy. The same thing with this chemistry. They're like, no, it's so easy for molecules to come together, and like this can happen easily in water, in prebiotic conditions. All you need is a pond of molecules, and it's just so easy. And they talk like this. And James Tour is listening to all these things. And the guy, when you listen to the guy, Dave, whatever his name is, you would really think that he knows what he's talking about. Like you can't. There's no way he could be wrong. But when you dive into the chemistry, you see how wrong he is. How wrong he is. But you go to his videos, thousands of likes, probably millions of subscribers. But he's absolutely wrong. And I'm starting to realize I don't feel anything for people who believe these nonsense. I really don't. Let them be fooled. Let them think there is no God. Let them think that the molecules that make life are different than the molecules that make a machine and a car, so that the molecules that make life can make life on their own without something acting upon them, but molecules that make a car can't make itself because the molecules of a car are different, and so that's why that can't happen. It's not because your knowledge of the molecules of a car is more than your knowledge about molecules of life. No, because the molecules of life are actually different than the molecules of a car. So it can happen. Yeah, okay. Y'all keep believing that.
We don't know how to do this in solution in the lab, to do anything cleanly. But somewhere under a rock or in an ocean, like it's presupposed here, this is all happening in water. It could have, it may have, possibly could have, and it perhaps only reacted with L amino acids. This is all fallacious. None of that is real. None of that happens. It's never been demonstrated, even in a pristine lab, under anything that is remotely related to prebiotically relevant, where you're just dealing off of a mineral surface. No way. And even if you use modern synthetic methods, we don't know how to do this well in solution. I mean, the buildup of material in there after each step, it just wipes you out. The buildup of material in there after each step, it just wipes you out. After each step, it just wipes you out. After each step, it just wipes you out. But somewhere in the ocean, it figured it out. Moreover, it was said, nucleic acids, proteins, these are utterly trivial to synthesize. We even have machines that do it for us. Some suggest that
Jim is constantly talking about how we don't know how to make the 4 classes of biomolecules, which are nucleic acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. This is ridiculous. Nucleic acid synthesis and protein synthesis are utterly trivial.
Utterly trivial. Utterly trivial. Then why do people buy all their reagents from companies that isolate their reagents from nature? If it's trivial, why don't they just make it? No, because it's very hard to make these compounds, and it's very hard to hook them up. Why do they need such machines? Why not just dump it in a flask or dump it in the ocean? They'll hook it up for you.
It's so easy to do that we even figured out how to make machines that do it for us. We type in the sequence we want on a computer, let the machine run, and we can get a DNA strand of any sequence of nucleotides we want, or a protein of any sequence of amino acids we want.
Yeah, sounds so easy. Shocker. Some have said
any biomolecule is easy to synthesize.
Wow. Just remember that, synthetic chemists, I know you're having heart palpitations now, that somebody would make such a claim, that there's people out there that really believe that. Why don't you guys just quit your job? Why don't you men and women who work into this just quit your job and we'll just have technicians make the biomolecules because they're so easy to synthesize. Just trivial. And further said,
Jim knows this. He's a synthetic chemist. What he probably means is that we haven't seen these biomacromolecules form spontaneously outside of a biological system. But that's not what he says. He does not make the distinction, and this seems deliberate on his part.
Form spontaneously. Even in a biological system, these don't form spontaneously. Just poof, just form. None of this happens. In biology, you got enzymes very carefully putting these things together, and if there's a misstep, there's other molecules in there that take care of this. Nothing forms spontaneously like this. Nothing of any complexity forms spontaneously. No, I didn't know that, and neither does any other synthetic chemist. It's difficult for chemists to make most macromolecules, and usually impossible when restricted to prebiotic chemicals. And much harder for prebiotic Earth, where the Earth could not buy the 20 amino acids in homochiral form, or the carbohydrates, or the nucleotides, or the lipids. And no chemist in her right mind would support the nonsensical claim that any biomolecule is easy to synthesize. Here's what a protein synthesizer looks like. You have all these different vessels you have to have, and all of this plumbing that it's hooked up to. So to say we have machines and this is really easy, look at the research that went into this machine. This is a machine that was just designed in 2020. Now that we've had peptide synthesizers for 30 years. This is not easy. You don't find this under a rock. And every one of the chemicals in here, every one of the amino acids in here is selectively protected on the nitrogen. Every one of them is if it has an active side chain, has a protection group on that. Every reagent here is highly purified, human-made, human-designed reagent. Every solvent is highly purified. This is not in a bunch of junk water. There's no water. This is all solvent-free, done solvent-free, done water-free. Why water-free? Because water hydrolyzes this. These reactions wouldn't go in water. But somehow under a rock, it figured it out.
And then after that, the bacteria now needs to always be in its vesicle. Before it was in its vesicle, it didn't need to be in its vesicle. It could have been outside and it was just perpetually moving and forming itself. And then it was able to get all these complex molecular machines in a microscopic area of space. You know, it's smaller than a tip. You can fit thousands or hundreds on the tip of a needle. You can fit hundreds or thousands of bacteria on the tip of a needle. So all the materials that you need to make one bacteria was able to, out of the whole entire world, come together in one microscopic space. Microscopic space. To join together to form the cell. And then once it became a cell, it had to stay like that. It could, now, if it comes out of it, it breaks down. Oh, wow. But before it was inside the vesicle, it didn't break down. But now that it's in its vesicle, if it was ever punctured and its inner organs leaked out, now it can never come back together. But if it was able to come together before it was in the vesicle, then when you puncture it and all the pieces are right there in the same microscopic space, it should self-assemble into a cell because that's what they did to become a cell. Oh no, it can't happen today. Oh, so back then the environment was like very magical. It was very magical, huh? So now, in order for you to have a bacteria, it needs to come out of the bacteria because the bacteria can never be opened and exposed to the environment. No, it must always be enclosed. And if you want to make another one, it has to come out of this one and it becomes another one. A cell has to come out of a cell. An animal has to come out of an animal. Every living thing has to come out of a pre-existing living thing. Every machine is made from a machine. Every machine is made from either a human machine or another machine, which was also made by humans. Every machine is made from another machine, humans or machines. everything comes out of something that was just like itself. If it's alive, it came out of something that was already alive. If it was not alive, it couldn't have come out of it. It can't produce something living if it's not alive. If it's alive, it came out of something that was already alive, not something that wasn't alive that came together to become alive. And like I always say, even if you came to have something that came together to make some mechanism that was mobile, it's not alive. It's just mobile because its parts is making it mobile. But it doesn't have an intuition. It doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't have an aim, a goal. Let me go and find food. How does it even know what the heck to eat? And then when all these parts come together, they now start acting like a factory. A factory. Not just any factory. A factory that even humans can never make because it is so darn advanced. It is so darn advanced. Humans can never fathom making it because it is so darn advanced. If someone says it can be made, they're ignorant of how complex the system is. Darwin thought that it was a piece of protoplasm, jelly. He was ignorant of its design. We are no longer ignorant of its design. So why are you still holding on to the values of the ignorant person who was ignorant of the very thing that you now know is way too complex for even humans to make, for you to say it came about by chance? And every part of it is purposeful. This doesn't happen because if it happens, this will do this and it will break down. So it manages it so that this doesn't happen, so that it can keep living. Molecules do not... Yeah, those Bible verses really hit different once you come to realize the impossibility of life. It hits different. It hits different when the Bible says only the fool says there is no God. Yeah, no, this ain't no, it ain't sugarcoating it. Only a fool will say there is no God. Only a fool will say Superman can fly. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So what, you can't see him? So what, you can't see him? That's not the point. The point is someone built a house and chose not to stay in the house and chose to be away from the house. Doesn't mean that because you can't see the one who built the house means that the house built itself. And if he is smart enough to create you, is he not smart enough to hide himself? The question is not, does God exist? The question is, why is he hiding himself? That's the question. That's the question. Because obviously he's there. The question is, why is he hiding himself? That's the question. Why did you build a house and choose not to be seen by the house? Why? Why did you build the people and choose not to be seen by the people? You gave them eyes to see, but you did not give them eyes to see you. Why? That's the question. The question isn't, is there a God or not? That's a stupid question. The question isn't, can Superman fly or not? What type of question is that? What type of question is God real? What do you mean, is God real? How is he not real? How is he not real? How is he not real? A car cannot self-assemble. Molecules cannot self-assemble. You cannot exist unless he is there. So he is there. The question isn't whether he's there or not. The question is, why has he chosen not to reveal himself? That's the question. You have these molecules. The DNA is closed up because it's an information. It's a book. It can't be contaminated. It's so fragile that it's even being broken apart within the very environment that it's safest in. The safest environment for the DNA is not even in the cell. It's in the nucleus of the cell. And even in the nucleus of the cell, where it's the most safe, it's constantly being broken down. That's how fragile it is. So that it needs molecules to repair it. Why are molecules repairing things? Why is this so important that something is repairing it? How can something even repair something else unless it was designed to do so? They're just molecules. A piece of wood is not trying to repair another piece of wood. They're all molecules. You all need to know what molecules are. Spend the rest of the year, the whole year, understanding what molecules can and cannot do. That's what you need to do. Once you know that, then you'll be like, damn, no, there is a God. There is a God. There is a God. I'm not listening to any these evolutionists are foolish. Like, once you know these facts and you hear these scholars talking about evolution, it just boggles your mind. Like, my man's like, are you serious? You really talking about evolution? Like, are you serious? You went to school. You're a human being made in his image, and you spewing nonsense about molecules self-assembling. Molecules can't do it. Like, are you serious right now? Like, that's how it's as good as seeing God and someone saying God doesn't exist. Like, bro, what do you mean, God? Yo, how does anything exist if there is no God? How do you exist? So these molecules is the information is so precious and delicate and fragile. It needs to be repaired. And in order for you to make something, you need to copy it. But in order to copy it, there's an enzyme that comes specifically to open it up, and then you can copy it. Once you finish copying it, it closes back up again. It needs to protect itself. And then once it copies it, it closes up, and then it goes outside the nuclear pore complex. And it chooses, okay, you're good to go. You go in. Something else want to go out, you can't go out. You want to come in, you can come in. It's selective. It's like a mind. And then it goes out and it attaches itself to a machine, and it translates it. It translates it into a protein, and the protein gets shuttled to where it's needed. And you have things that walk, it carries loads and it's walking. And it can't just walk on anything. It needs to walk on a specific microtubule. And these microtubules self-assemble when the thing needs to walk and go somewhere. So it's like you need to go to Manhattan. So this is the path to Manhattan, but you can't get there unless there's a road. So the cell self-assembles a road, and the microtubule walks on the road. And once it gets to its destination, the road disassembles. Yo, these are molecules, people. It's a piece of iron doing these things. My iron does not have mind unless it's been pre-programmed to do this. So, hey man, I'm reaching a state of enlightenment, man. This thing right here, I think God is making it a little bit more potent. Like, it's being more visible now. I don't know, but you guys, oh my God. Armageddon suits us well. Armageddon suits us well. And I cannot wait. Oh my God.
So Dr. Eberlin, would you please tell us what is your field and how does that relate to intelligent design?
Okay, sure. David, I'm a chemist, but more specifically, I work with mass spectrometry.
What is that?
Oh, this is a really interesting technique. Actually, it's more than a technique nowadays. It's so important. It's a way to investigate molecules and to characterize those molecules properly. So it's like you have a sample, you go there with a mass spec, you pick up a molecule, you weight it, you investigate it, you try to see which elements make up that molecule. You see this, you can also have an idea of the structure, the three-dimensional structure of that molecule. You can quantify how many molecules are there. So it's a really powerful tool, because I used to say that chemistry is everything and everything is chemistry. So if you have a tool that allows you to look at the molecules and to be sure about the composition, the structure, the quantities, it's a really powerful technique. And how does it relate to intelligent design? It's really great, because as Michael B. said in his book, it was only when we opened the black box of life that we really discover how complex it is, how intricate, how many signs of foresight we see there. But we were able to do that because we could investigate life on the molecular level. We could have a great idea, overall idea of the molecules which are working inside that black box. And to do that, most biochemists and chemists these days, they use mass spectrometry. And that's really interesting, because we need chemistry to defend intelligent design, a lot of chemistry. There's somebody that said once, evolution hopes you don't know chemistry, because it's on the molecular level. when you know when everything is working, which molecules are involved, which kind of metabolic process are involved, when you know how the DNA molecule is made of, how the information is, the logic of this information is done, is exactly at that point that you understand that evolution has no hope at all for building all these wonderful structures of life.
The reason why you are fooled into thinking that life can occur by itself is because you haven't studied molecules. So you're not aware of what molecules can do. So when you're not aware of what things can do, you can fantasize in your mind, and there is no limit to the fantastical things you can imagine in your mind. This is what the devil plays on. He plays on your lack of knowledge. Like God says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge.
And so mass spectrometry has been a really nice tool to investigate life at the molecular level. So I would say that this is the fundamental technique for science to discover the really truth about our origins.
So Dr. Eberlin, you are the author of the new book, Foresight, which has endorsements from 3 Nobel Prize winners. Can you tell us what is the difference between your perspective in the book on intelligent design and that of other leading figures in the intelligent design movement?
Oh, David, I think Foresight is so great, so interesting.
It is.
Because I think it provides a really, really strong argument in favor of intelligent design. And I can't see any way that Darwin, the naturalists, the defenders of evolution, will come out with a solution for this dilemma. Because, complexity, okay, it's really hard to explain how a natural process would build a complex system, irreducible complex system. But they came out with some ideas. Human imagination has no limit, right?
When you're not aware of what things can do, you can fantasize in your mind, and there is no limit to the fantastical things you can imagine in your mind. This is what the devil plays on.
Human imagination has no limit, right? So they were talking about co-options, a co-option mechanism and things like this. Information is also really difficult. We have a really strong argument about information. It's arbitrary information. It must come from the mind. But Francis Crick said, that was an accident. That was got frozen throughout the millions of years of life. But now we come with this argument of foresight. What is foresight? Is the ability to predict, to look at the future, to shape the future. And you have to have a mind to do it. You have to look at the future, to see what's going to happen in the future, to realize that a problem will appear sometime in the future. You have to look for what kind of problem this problem is. You have to look for a proper solution. You have to install that solution in advance. So when the problem really happens, the solution must be there, fully operational, ready to go. So I think, imagination, human imagination, as I said, has no limits. But I can't see any way that you can explain foresight without asking or without calling for a mind. It's a unique ability that only minds should display. And it's not just a solution, it's a proper solution. And we see ingenious solutions, really, really clever solutions. So I think we have a really strong argument that adds to the arguments that we used to have. And as I said, imagination has no limit, but I can't imagine any way that you can explain foresight without calling for a mind.
He plays on your lack of knowledge. Like God says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge.